Welcome back to English Made Interesting. Today I will explain the poem A Photograph by Shirley Toulson. Kathleen Shirley Toulson was an English writer, poet, journalist and a local politician. She was a highly regarded poet and an innovative writer about Britain's works, ancient tracts and traditions. Her poetry was broadcast and published in journals. She studied English at a college under the London University and became a teacher. She was also a freelance journalist. The poem, The Photograph, is a tribute to the poet's mother. Tribute, which means a gift which shows gratitude, respect and admiration to someone. The poem describes 3 stages in the passage of time. It is about transience of human life, death and the mysteries surrounding them. What is transience? It is a fact or state that it lasts only for a short time. The poet is looking at the photograph of her mother and is missing her. In the first stage, the photograph shows the poet's mother standing at the beach, enjoying her holiday with her 2 cousins. She was around 12 years at that time. The second stage takes us 20 or 30 years later. It deals with recollections. The mother's recollection of her childhood, just as the poet recalls her mother who is now dead. The third stage is about the death and the transience of life, which means human beings and their life, it is very short-lived and it is not permanent, it is temporary. Now I will explain the poem. The cardboard shows me how it was when the 2 girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. So here the cardboard means a photograph. Paddling means walking through shallow water, bare feet, and the lines mean that an old photograph of the poet's mother, which was pasted on the cardboard, makes the poet recall the old memories of her mother's childhood. The photograph is a depiction of her mother's enjoyable moments at a sea beach with her 2 cousins who were younger to her. They were walking in shallow water with bare feet near the beach. The mother was standing in the middle and holding hands of her 2 cousins who were standing on each side. The poet's mother was 12 years old then. It shows that the photograph was very old, but the poet has kept it very carefully as it reminded her of sweet memories of her mother's childhood. The photograph also indicates how enjoyable her mother's childhood was. All 3 stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's. That was before I was born. And the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Which means the photograph shows that all 3 girls, the poet's mother and her 2 cousins, stood still and smiled at the camera when their uncle clicked their photograph at the sea beach. As the weather was windy at that time, their hair was flying over their smiling faces. The expression on the faces of the poet's mother and her cousins was that of happiness and enjoyment. The mother was looking very pretty at that time, and the photograph was taken a long time ago. Everything has changed since then. Her mother grew up. Now she was dead, and the poet was reviving her memories. The only thing that has remained unchanged is the sea, which was washing the feet of all the three girls. The mention of the word transient indicates the ever-changing lives of human beings as well as the shortness of their stay in this world, in contrast to the eternality of nature. The girl's life changed drastically during this period, but the sea has not changed. This stanza beautifully explains the transient nature of human beings. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot, "See Betty and Dolly." She would say, "And look how they dressed us for the beach." The sea holiday was her past. Mine is her laughter. Both rye with the labored ease of loss. Even 20 to 30 years later, the mother would look at the photograph and laugh nostalgically, remembering the happy memories of her past. Mother would look at the photograph and comment on the dresses worn by the cousins, Dolly, Betty, and herself. Sea holiday was her mother's past, and her mother's laughter has become a thing of the past for the poet, as her mother was now dead. The poet still remembers how her mother would laugh at the photograph, remembering the sea holiday with a fondness as well as a sense of loss, because that time would never come back. In the same way, poet feels nostalgic thinking about her mother and her laughter, which has become a thing of the past. The words labored and ease are opposite to each other, but describe the same entity, loss. Now, she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived. And of this circumstance, there is nothing to say at all. Its silence silences. The poet recalls that it is nearly 12 years since her mother died. The poet is consumed with grief, but is left with no words to express her loss and pain. The poet is totally absorbed in memories of her dead mother. The painful silence of this situation leaves the poet speechless. The poet can feel the grief but is unable to express it through words. The silence caused by death makes the atmosphere gloomy, where no one is able to utter words.